And are you refreshed? Good. Now what?
Hi. Divorce. How do I move through a painful process in a way that manifests the best outcome for my kids?
It's a big question, isn't it? There's so much we want to say to you about this. We were going to tease you a little bit just to lighten the mood. That you can't have an unhappy journey on your way to a happy ending. So acknowledging that it's painful, of course, we get that. Acknowledging that it is clarifying helps too. Acknowledging that really what you wish for everyone, yourself and your children, anyone, what you wish for them, what we wish for them, is an understanding that their relationship with their own inner being is paramount, and their relationships with everything else is less significant. But it isn't the way that most are reared in your environment. Most parents work rather hard at teaching their children to look to them for everything. And so sometimes children are not as resourceful as they could be because they haven't been looking toward their own guidance. They haven't been understanding their own emotions. And so they're not stable in that secure way that they could be if they knew that. So then what worries you is that you present yourself, most parents do, as a sort of united front that your children are looking to for guidance. And then when the united front is no longer united, and maybe hasn't been for a while, and so the energy sort of split, then they don't know what to do. And so maybe it's helpful to acknowledge that the united front was never that united, and that they've always had these resources that they can turn to, and that this is an opportunity for them to maybe early on in their life get in touch with the things that really matter. And then we're going to tell you our favorite thing that we tell anyone about divorce, and that is, oh good. Well, you ran away with that before we meant for you to. Oh good. My children now have an opportunity to see the way that two different people are approaching life. It gives them more data early on to understand their own approach to life. And so you can't control what somebody else does. But if you don't make it a I'm guilty and therefore I'm trying to compensate sort of thing, or I want to be seen as right and I care so much what you think that now I'm going to push against the other in order to win votes. If instead you really are, and we know that you are, wanting the greatest value for your children, then this is an opportunity that will benefit them much more than it is an enduring experience that will be to their detriment. Really, it is. First of all, far too much is made of parenting. Because what parenting is really, in human sense, is it is the structure by which individuals deprive their children of their own guidance system and replace it with others who are rarely in alignment with source energy, and certainly not in alignment with what the kids want. And so children are subjected to all kinds of guidance that has nothing to do with their personal satisfaction, because it's all about doing what I want you to do rather than what your life has shown you that you want to do. And so this is an opportunity of true freedom and expansion for everyone involved. And it's okay. Something terrible isn't happening here. It's all right to make a decision and then change your mind. That's what life always is a series of now what, now what, now what. And oftentimes the next now what, every time the next now what can have more juice and more wonderful things in it than what came before. And so that's the premise that we would start from if we were standing in your physical shoes. Want to talk about something more specific?
Yeah, during the last conversation, we were talking about resistance and manifesting. I had imagery in my head of tug of war in my situation, you know, the feeling of tugging and going back and forth and being in that space of resistance. And it made me wonder what I'm actually manifesting through this process, because my intention is to manifest a positive outcome for all involved. And so I think my question for you is, what is my responsibility through this process? Because there is a rope.
First, we want to clarify that the tug of war, and the only tug of war worth talking about, is the tug of war that you put on yourself when you're pulling against yourself. Sometimes in a confrontational situation, it feels like the tug of war is between two people, but it never is, because your inner being has an opinion and an approach to what's going on. And anytime you feel a tug of war going on, it's between you and you. We know it doesn't look like that because you're having knee-jerk responses to what somebody else is doing. But there isn't anything better than having someone who's really getting a lot of satisfaction out of knee-jerking you, and you getting so that you're not knee-jerked. Nothing is more satisfying than to find stability in what seems like an unstable environment. You can do that because your inner being is not unstable. It's not just what the other person is saying or suggesting or accusing or doing. It's the stuff that's going on in your own mind. It's the contradictions about you that you are playing in your own mind. And so what you want to do is to come into vibrational harmony about yourself. You want to begin to know yourself through the eyes of Source rather than through the eyes of somebody who's mad at you. You want to see yourself through the eyes of Source rather than through the eyes of so many people. And this is what you all do to each other. If someone is adoring you and you are awash in their gaze of appreciation, it feels really good. And then you say, but I always need your gaze to be upon me, which is not a practical thing. So if they're interested in something else, like maybe what they're going to have for lunch or anything else, then you feel like a puppet that someone has let go of the strings. And so people hold other people responsible for the way they feel. That's what's at the root of every uncomfortable relationship. That's what we were playing with the segment intending that we were talking about earlier. We said a lot of humans, this is sort of the way you seem to behave as if you would like it to be this way. It's like you want to put out an advertisement to the world. Your social media makes it rather easy to do that. And you show a picture of yourself and a list of expectations that you have of others. And your note to the world says, this is me, take a good look. You might run into me. Search every crowd for me, and when you find me, this is what I need from you so that I will have a good day. Now, we know that sounds silly, but that is the way you treat others. That is sort of the way most humans are going through life. This is what I need from you in order for me to be happy. When we put it on social media and we point out the absurdity of something like that, it's easier for you to understand that you could do that, or you could calibrate your vibrational frequency to the attraction of things you want, and then you could just move in your bubble of attraction through the world and get from wherever you are the things that are most active in your vibration. So what happens in a situation where someone is being fired or a relationship is ending in some way? What happens is there is the potential of coming to a keener awareness of understanding that all you got to do is clean up your point of attraction, and that it never was about the other person. Because what happens, people keep moving to different faces and different places and having the same experience because they keep taking themselves and their habit of thoughts with them. A belief is just a thought that you continue to think. So, in answer to your question, how can this be something that is not just tolerable, not just endurable, but something that can be satisfying for you and for everyone involved, certainly your children? How can you go about that? You have to find your own balance, because you can't encourage or promote or add to something that you're not. You must find your own balance. And so here's the way we would start it. Anytime you feel negative emotion, whether you're feeling fear about what's coming, or guilt about not having kept it together in some way, anytime you're feeling negative emotion, stop and remind yourself, this is me looking at this in a very different way than my inner being is looking at it right here, right now. And then once you've acknowledged that, ask yourself the question, what does my inner being think about this? So for example, you have a thought like, it's going to be so disruptive to my kids, and it's going to upset their life, and they're going to have instability that could affect them. And you can really get carried away with that. And you feel the discord in yourself. So it's clearly not what your inner being is thinking. What does my inner being think about this? My inner being knows my kids are stable. My inner being knows that they have an inner being. My inner being knows that they're going to be just fine. My inner being knows that they are flexible. My inner being knows that I love them. My inner being knows that my kids know that I love them. My inner being knows that their mother loves them. When you really ask the question, what does your inner being know? You'll keep coming to those awarenesses that this is not a terrible thing that's happening. This is a thing that's happening, that you can find a way. We like to say, and we mean this regarding everything, and we especially mean it regarding this: make a decision and then line up with it. So let's say that the decision has been made by both of you, has it? That this divorce is going to happen. Yeah?
I would say that for one of us more than the other, and I don't know, and the one of us is me, that is leaving for a lot of reasons.
So spend no time justifying it, because your inner being isn't doing that. And every minute you spend justifying why you're leaving, then you hold yourself out of whack. So make a decision, sounds like you have, and then line up with it. But you've made a decision that you're not lined up with. You've made a decision that you're not really lined up with. You've decided it's going to happen, but you're not lined up with it. And by lined up with it, we mean you're seeing the positive aspects of it. Now, does that sound weird to you? Does it sound weird that someone would be calling a breaking up of a relationship with children involved, even acknowledge that there are positive aspects in it? Well, what's the alternative? My children are dependent upon the two of us being together forever and ever and ever. That's bogus. My kids' happiness depends on how I feel about someone else and how that other person feels about me. That's bogus.